All right, so I think we've got the foundations now to actually start moving some stuff around with code, doing some user interaction. I think you're going to like this. So we're going to start with moving an object in code. We're going to move whatever the game object is that we drug into the inspector, the temp geo. Does not matter what it is. So we're going to take the temp position. We're grabbing it here in start, which is fine. I'm going to go ahead and remove all of this update code, though we are going to do something similar. I'm going to change the move speed to 1.3. So in update, we want to do this again, because remember, here this happens once in start. Here, inside of update, it happens once per frame. So this is going to happen, and just think of it as constantly nonstop. So if we say, okay, let's take the temp position, and just for the ease of sake, we're just going to make a variable called new position, and it's going to be a new vector3, which is going to be temp position dot x plus move speed, temp position dot y, and temp position dot z. Basically, we're saying, I'll delete this to make it clear for a moment, saying new position equals temp position. So temp position, every time update runs, it says, okay, what is the position of the game object right now? Okay, we're going to make a new vector3 called new position. That is going to be the values from these, but we're going to add move speed. Then we're going to say temp geo transform position equals new pos. So I'll even comment. Grab the current position, add the move speed in the x, assign the new vector3 called new pos to the temp geo's position. Save, Alt tab back over, and once it compiles, okay, game manager, we don't want, well, okay, why not? Everything drops. And the floor is nowhere to be found. It's out of here. So see it again, a little more zoomed out, because that is the current game object. Now, if we move the sphere into there, it's going to be kind of the same, except it's going to go that way very quickly. Also being affected by gravity, so it falls. So clearly, that value of 1.3 is too high. I knew it would be. So let's make this a public float move speed. Now here we're giving it an initial value of 4.5. That means every time the script is added onto something, it will have that default value. However, we are overriding it right here. I'm going to go ahead and take this line out, because otherwise, no matter what we put in the editor, every time it starts, it's going to take on that move speed. I'm going to delete that. That has served its purpose. I'm going to go back over here. Recompiles, brings it back up, move speed 4.5, which again is what we set the default as. Let's do it really small, like 0.1. And I'm going to hit play, and then, well, there we go. It moves a little more reasonably. Okay, if we do that with the floor, then the floor will move, but slower. Slow enough for things to land and then fall. And we can say, oh, you know what? That's still too fast. I want it to be 0.01. And say, well, that's a little too slow. I want it to be 0.03. And so you can kind of play with it and find out how fast you can go, oh yeah, that's about as fast as I want to go. Remember what we talked about earlier on. So I say, okay, 0.3 is what I want. I'm going to come out of play mode and I'm going to say 0.3. I'm going to hit play. And then it'll move at the speed that I determined, which, you know, it's still a little bit fast, but that's fine. Not important. You get the concept. We can change the speed, we can adjust the speed, and no matter what we put in there, it's going to move at that speed. So now it's the cube, and so on. So that is how we control an object through code. We control the position of it anyway. And so we are changing the transform of the x. So now let's focus on the cube and we hit play. There's the x. Watch what happens. It's going up by 0.1 each time. Now, we get into some squirrely numbers because it's also being affected by gravity, velocity, all that kind of stuff. If we take the floor, for example, because remember, the floor does not have the rigid body, so it's not being affected by gravity. Floor, on the other hand, is just going to keep moving at that 0.1 speed each time. And if we come over here and we change that to like 2, over here, this thing is just cranking along. And of course, you can see it over there going nuts. So that is how we do things with code. We can even do some of the things that we did before and say, let's say, if temppause.x is less than, okay, watch this. So there's my cube, and I say, okay, I only want it to move. I want to, let's put it over here. Let's give it a really small move speed of like smaller than that, 0.01. But I only want it to move, and I'm dragging around just to kind of see. I only want it to move if it's less than 1. So I want it to stop moving around there. I'm going to bring it over here, which, checking, yep, that's still, so it's still going to fall on here, and it's going to slide across while it's less than 1.0. And then I'm going to grab this, Control X or Command X, Control V or Command V to paste, cut and paste. You should be familiar with this. And save that. So again, we're grabbing the current position, and then we're saying, okay, if the x of the current position is less than 1, then we want to assign it a new value. Otherwise, we're not going to change it, because we're assigning, while we're assigning it here, we don't actually move it here anymore. Let's see if that works. Back over, waiting for it to compile, hit play. I bet I didn't put the cube in. Nope, I put the floor. But it still worked. The floor moved until it got to be more than 1. And then it stopped moving. If I move it back, again, it's going to move until it gets to over 1, and then it stops. Let's do what I actually wanted it to do. See, that's the fun thing about computers. They're going to do exactly what you tell them to do, not always what you want. So now, there, it's moving across, and again, it's going to get to 1, and then it stops. Now, the ball is still rolling because the ball's still rolling. It's not affected by the code. It's just being affected by the physics engine at this point. Also pick it up and drop it and play around with that stuff and let the physics engine do its own thing. That's kind of fun. But that is how we move objects through code, and what you've also been learning in this process is how to interact with objects from scripts, and more importantly, how to make a reusable piece of code to interact with whatever game object you put in here. You might say, okay, well, this is not very useful. You'd be surprised, because if you've got a game like, say, Flappy Bird, you can have an obstacle that moves across the screen. And then when it gets where you want it to be, let's say it moves to -10. You move it to -10 and you say, oh, okay, well, if we get higher than that, higher than 10, then we want to go to -10. And it comes across and you've got the code that keeps moving it. It says, okay, if it's higher than 10, go to -10. And so that object will go across over and over and over. And that's going to be the basis of a Flappy Bird game. That's going to be the basis of a Crossy Road type game. A lot of other things. There will be a tutorial series after this that shows you how to take all the concepts you've learned here and make a very simple Flappy Bird game. We've got a lot of it. We've probably got 70% of the game already here. And you've got pretty much all the concepts, the vast majority of them, to do it now. So that's going to wrap it up for moving objects with code. Next, we're going to add a little bit of user interaction.